evening and welcome to VI Voices on September 18th, 2012. And tonight we have an action-packed show as we have two other candidates who are running for the 30th legislature of the Virgin Islands, and that is Carmen Cintron and Arthur Joseph. And as we begin every night, we begin with our hot topics. Good night, guys.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We did a show previously where we were talking about the Constitutional Convention, and we ran out of time. I wanted to make sure we talk about it tonight. And one of the issues, of course, is the fact that the governor has signed into law the Constitutional Revision Bill done by Senator Russell, put forth by Senator Russell, which is designed to convene the 5th Constitutional Convention by adding 5 individuals to draft or do the corrections to pass on to the members of the 5th Constitutional Convention for them to either ratify up or down and send it back off. They have 30 days to do it, and if they don't do it within a 30-day period, it then reverts to the legislature, and the legislature will then write the Constitution and send it off to Congress. Now, please tell me if I'm the only person that feels something is completely wrong with that.
I think there's something wrong with that. It's basically he has just shanghaied the entire process, taken away from the power from the representatives of who are duly elected to convene this convention and to draft a constitution.
Do you think it's a voter disenfranchisement issue?
I think it's a voter disenfranchisement issue. Because whether I agree with the current draft or not, I think the delegates were duly elected by the people, and they have the right to see this process from beginning to end. And if that means from draft to actually seeing it all the way to putting it before the people, where the people can vote it up or down, so be it.
Exactly, and the worst case scenario is if the people voted down, we face a 6th constitutional convention.
Now, see, here's what I find that, or at least in my opinion, I believe that this new revision, constitutional revision, is unconstitutional. Primarily it's because Congress prepared a joint resolution, a public law joint resolution, which sent the document back to the Constitutional Convention, the 5th Constitutional Convention.
Citing some concerns.
Citing some concerns, not saying that what I put in here is illegal.
Right.
They said we're concerned about this because they may be illegal, except there's only one concern they had in there that they found was absolutely illegal, which was, or unconstitutional, which was the districting, okay? But what is interesting about that joint resolution was it said they're sending it back to you. They don't put a time limit for you to deal with the concerns, and they removed the requirement of sending it to the governor to send to them. They said send it directly back to us. So that means they interpreted it to mean you're not done.
Right.
And so we're sending it back to you, you complete it. It was never, in my opinion, a contemplation that the legislature can now turn around and create a whole new function.
But they allotted funds too, right? To give to the body, and the legislature refused to give the funds?
Well, no, the money was going to also come from the Department of Interior.
Okay.
Now, my understanding is some people in the legislature had, or maybe just one
person, okay,
had a conversation with the Department of Interior and said, don't do anything yet, we're going to do this. And so they held off on giving them their money. It went from $500,000 to $150,000.
I think it also circumventing the whole process. If you understand what took place, you had one European nation purchase land with people and the land from another European nation. That in itself is wrong. How you could purchase land, legally purchase land, that people live on the land. So the people of the land at that time had no say. They were disenfranchised. So you a perfect opportunity to right a wrong, and the legislature right now is doing it again. These people who are voiceless have a right to stand up and say what they want.
I agree.
Totally agree. So how can you do that? How can you, as an attorney and the president of the legislature, how you could come up with some kind of bill? Who pushing you?
Well, here's my concern. The document had been returned for 2 years now. Okay, it didn't just come back last week.
Right.
It's been here for a while and it just sat there. And miraculously, somebody remembered it as election time comes around. Why? Because it is once again an opportunity to divide a community on an issue they don't need to be divided on.
Right.
Correct.
And so that you can garner specific votes. So if you don't want the Constitution, then we bring it all up and we all talk about it so you can vote for me because you don't want the Constitution. Or if you want it, then those argue for it, then they'll vote for you because you want it. It's been here for 2 years. If it was that important of an issue that requires 30 days, when it came back the first time, you would have done what needed to be done to ensure that the document is put forth. But my thing is, there were 30 delegates, and 30 delegates were voted for. And when you look at the 30 delegates that won election, it really comprises a cross spectrum of our community, which means you voted for who you felt would represent what you wanted.
Right.
It may not jive with what you wanted, but you voted for someone who actually made it on there that would vote and create a document how you wanted it.
Right.
When you mesh them together, we will have things that we are not satisfied with. You will have things you're satisfied with. I will have things that I'm satisfied with. You have things you're not satisfied with. But that's what the document is supposed to do. It's not supposed to be a perfect document.
What about doing you think it's a case of putting the cart before the horse, so to speak, without addressing status? You don't think we should tackle status prior to this thing?
Been down that road.
Honestly, I do believe if you follow what is in the Constitution, the draft now, what you want in there, then that argument plays, because you're right. You should determine your political status first. Then you can do whatever you want in your document once you determine what that status
But I'm asking,
is.
you don't think we should address that? You don't think we should hold forums on education, different forums about educating the people regarding status?
I think that there should be forums on status, because we have to at some point make that decision.
How you could give me permission? I live with my mother, and my mother said, okay, you go ahead and you could, I'm giving you an opportunity to write whatever it is you want to write in here and how you gonna live.
But you have a good mother, because money.
I'm not speaking literally.
Well, okay, so money enough for that.
I'm just saying. But you see my point. But you see my point, though. America being the mother, and she giving us permission to write rules to live in her house. That's my point. So what time we gonna grow up? What time we gonna come out the house? At what point?
See, my thing is with the Constitution. I think the Constitution, what we're doing right now, is at the right time. Status is apart from, but we need to discuss status. Right. So get your Constitution in order. And this Constitution also then can be a transition document.
Right.
If it goes to statehood, if it goes to independence, because you already have an operational document for your government. But then status needs, once you discuss status, then if this Constitution now become the Constitution for the independent state of the Virgin Islands, then it can then transform there, then it just...
I agree with that. I would want to have a document in place before, in the event that we all vote that we decide we want to be an independent nation, I would want to have a document already in place. I don't want to be an independent nation without a document and people create a document.
No, we don't have to be independent. We could be,
even if we go to statehood, I would want to have at least something that's already there that we can tweak in order to become a state, which will never ever happen.
And the upside of having the Constitution in place, it would allow us the opportunity, it being a living document, to make changes as we go along. But at least we have some kind of security blanket to hold on to.
But you see, what you say is very correct, but I have something to argue that people may disagree with. As we discuss this Constitution, we also need to discuss our symbols that represent these government. Right. And people keep telling me that Clint Ferris wants to change the flag of the Virgin Islands, but if you're talking about culture, your symbols must represent the people. And when you pull an eagle and the arrows off of a seal for the Navy and slap it on a white background and put V and an I and say that's your flag,
and we accept it,
does that speak to our culture?
In 2006, Judge Ross wanted to change the flag and create our own flag. And everybody said, we don't want no other flag. We like the flag we have.
But it's just because every week talk about that.
We need to now put that into context. What's going to represent us as a people as we move forward?
What's the purpose of a flag?
That will come after. If we can get a Constitution in place, which is the priority, I think all of that will fall into place.
Well, I think I agree with you that we have to have conversations on status. It is actually necessary to have that conversation. I don't think at this point that it is something that we should do before we have our Constitution in place. It makes sense for some of the things that's in there that you want done that you really could do with a different kind of status. But educating is important, because you'll be surprised how many people could not tell you what the term unincorporated territory means.
Or even know.
Right. You see, and so that's a problem, because you don't even know what your status is with the country.
Well, the chairperson...
And we do realize that in 5 years it's going to be 100 years.
Yeah, so in 5 years, 2017.
Yeah, but we'll be frolicking up and down the street.
The chairperson,
for 2017.
In all due respect, the chairperson, Gerard Los James II, does believe they can get the draft revisions done by October 31st.
Well, I don't believe that.
No, but he's the same one who sat there and said, okay, but...
Yeah, I mean, nobody said, but I don't believe, I think the 9 concerns are serious concerns that warrant discussions.
And when you have some of your membership on hiatus because they participated in the general election, then they have a challenge right there. How can you convene all those people?
Well, it was strategically done.
Well, we'll see what happens. I'm sure we'll talk about that some more. But I wanted to say something quickly. Remember in the last show, and some shows before, we were talking about the peace officer status bill. And I will tell you, I've now seen that Craig Barshinger, Carlton Dow, Lewis Hill, Neville James, Nellie Rivera O'Reilly, Ronald Russell, Samuel Sanders, Patrick Simeon Sproul, and Celestino White all voted yes to the peace officer status bill. And those who voted no was Sean Michael Malone, Alisa Chucky Hansen, Terrence Nelson, Lucy Richards, Jeanette Millen Young, and Alvin Williams was absent.
Right. But you see, Alvin was absent, and we know he's not coming back. But I'm going to say this to I am going to say this to the voting public. If you said you didn't want this bill, you need to start to look at these incumbents and their position on these bills and start to hold them accountable. If they voted for the bill and you didn't like that, you need to say that's a check in the no column against them. And you need to start to keep your own personal report card.
You said James and O'Reilly voted for it? You said?
No, O'Reilly voted, but James didn't.
No, James did. James voted for it.
James did, and O'Reilly did. I know
O'Reilly voted for it as well. You know, who voted no was Sean Michael Malone, Alicia Hansen, Terrence Nelson, Lucy Richards, Jeanette Millen Young. Alicia Hansen. See, that's another thing we agree on. Alicia, come on the show. I mean, Alicia Hansen, this is the second thing we agreed on.
But you see,
get brownie points in me.
But you see, if you're keeping your report card and you put down the middle, so I check in the A column for Senator Hansen.
Absolutely.
And then I check in the other column for a no. So you need to keep score. And once you keep score, and then you say, okay, if they make a grade of 80, don't give them no 70 and 75. 80 or better, then I give you a vote. Anything less than that, so you need to start to keep a personal report card on these people.
Absolutely. I just think it's kind of weird. I shouldn't say weird. It's amazing that, let me see here, 1, 2, 3 of the 4 of the 8 that voted for it are not returning to the legislature.
But you have to give credit to Senator Richards.
Oh yeah.
He was against the bill. He stood firmly. Whether he's returning or not, he let his voice be heard.
Absolutely.
Said, okay, I'm not going to support it.
Respect that one.
Yes, and you got to give him credit.
Yeah. Well, I'm telling you, we better start watching what's happening. I'm telling you, between now and whenever they adjourn Sendai, we have got to watch what they are doing, because especially those are not returning, because they have nothing to lose.
So we're going to be cooping them at night.
Absolutely.
Cooping them in the morning.
We'll let you do it, and let me know what happened. I need to sleep. So we'll let you do it, and you come back and tell us what happened, and we'll proceed from there. But it's amazing. And like I said, we have Arthur Joseph, who's on the show tonight, a police officer, and we'll talk to him about what, his feelings about that, and this issue of peace officer status. Very, very interesting. One thing that I wanted to talk about quickly before I know we're out of time for hot topics was the teacher strike in Chicago.
Right.
Very interesting for us to watch, because Rahm Emanuel, the mayor, filed for an injunction. The judge didn't necessarily grant it. I thought I heard today, when I was leaving to come up here for the show, that the judge denied the injunction. And what I thought was amazing was that in the Virgin Islands, the judges quickly sign injunctions when teachers go on strikes. And it's amazing that the arguments have been made that in a lot of states, they don't willingly give out injunctions to teachers because the argument of the public health and safety because a teacher isn't in school doesn't necessarily fly. That's usually the main argument in the Virgin Islands.
But you have to give the teachers credit, because they're saying that it's not about money, but again, okay, yes, we agree about the deal in principle, but we are somewhat leery about the drafters of this particular deal slipping something in because they had tried that before. Remember the same thing about our teachers union prayer? So think about what they're saying in Chicago. Yes, we will probably ratify it, but we have to peruse it.
They need the opportunity to read it through is what they're saying. And they're right.
Correct.
It's a huge document, but
And they have 30,000 members.
Yeah, we'll try to see how that goes. I'm sure we'll follow that and see how that goes forward. But tonight on our show, we continue with our senatorial race and talking to the candidates. And tonight we have
Carmen
Cintron and Arthur Joseph. And when we return, we'll return with Carmen Cintron. All right, back in a moment. Good evening and welcome back to VI Voices. We have with us Dr. Carmen Cintron, who is seeking office in the 30th Legislature of the Virgin Islands. And she's here with us. As you know, we've been having our Rock Your Voice campaign, and at VI Voices, we want to make sure that we have you informed about all the individuals running for office this year. And tonight is no different. And we have Dr. Cintron. Welcome to VI Voices.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about who you are and why are you running for office?
I'm Dr. Carmen Cintron. I'm an internal medicine doctor. I practice alongside Dr. Prasad at Primary Care PLLC in Princess. And I'm running for office for several reasons. I'm deeply concerned about the future of our children. I'm deeply concerned about the future of our health care. And I'm tremendously concerned about the future of our energy and who we choose to do business with. And I think that I have something to offer the people of St. Croix in particular and at large the people of the Virgin Islands. And I decided to throw my hat in the race. I have no intentions to quit medicine altogether. I am the Saturday physician at Primary Care, and I plan to continue to practice medicine at least 3 Saturdays a month. And I will work out an arrangement or create legislation which allows me to at least have 8 hours during the week as a senator that allows me to practice medicine. And yes, I will do this at a cut in my legislature salary. I believe that I can do both jobs, and I believe that both the healthcare and the political system and our future could benefit from me also being a senator at this time.
Okay. I have a standing rule. Anybody that starts talking about loving the children, I need to know why. And so, because I feel that people continually use the children. I'm not saying that that's what you're doing, but I'm saying people, whenever they're running for office, the first that comes out of their mouth is, I'm for the children, I want to do this for the children, but they never say what they're doing. So, I need for you to explain to me exactly what about the children concerns you and what you plan to do for them.
The most concerning thing with our children is how can we prevent those young children from becoming criminal elements of our society, and how can we better prepare them to believe in themselves, that they can pursue careers in higher learning, that they can find a purpose in their existence while they're here on this island. And I have great respect for most of our children that do succeed in the midst of all of this.
Okay, but what's your plan?
My plan is to push the charter system in the public school system, where we harvest the brightest amongst our public school students, and we push them as far as they can go, as far as they can be accelerated to go. I would like to limit the class size to 15 students, no more, and that may require rearranging the entire schools. For instance, instead of going from kindergarten to 5th grade, we might consider going from kindergarten to 4th grade. We might make our junior high school a little bit larger. We might have to establish new places to build schools. I think that high school should probably go from about 10th grade, to 12th grade, in an effort to make the class size smaller. It's abhorrent what DeYoung's administration did when he cut and essentially fired all of those teachers and paraprofessionals. Right now we're 66 teachers behind and the school year has begun.
88.
Well, see, my last reading was 66, so apparently it's gone up. And children need supervision.
Dr. Cintron, may I ask?
Yes.
You said that basically you're going to cut down class size to 15. With the budget is wasted, that's going to ask for more teachers? A lot, definitely more teachers, and they already done send 88 as the Attorney Henderson pointed out. How do we do that? And number two, it seems that the best thing these days is charter schools. Why aren't we not actually creating a system that we haven't even tested yet, where we remove the Department of Education from actual supervision of the schools and give operation to the Department of Education and actual curriculum and instruction to the Board of Education? Shouldn't we actually try that before we go to a charter school system?
I think you could do both. I think the charter school systems have been tried in America. I lived in North Carolina before I moved home here, and they were in their beginning stages. And they have produced good students, academic children that are ready for academia at all levels.
But aren't we just skipping one stage of development and going straight to charter school? We have not tried that model.
I don't think we are. I don't think we are. I went to school in St. Mary's, for instance, and from the jump, the children that were higher aptitude were pulled into a higher aptitude class. We had 3 levels of academia, A, B, and C. And so those that were of higher aptitude were immediately pulled into a class of other higher aptitude children. And we were the ones that were expected to go to college, become doctors, become attorneys, and come back home. The ones in the middle ground were expected to become your vocational types, as well as and the goal was to not have any in the C ground, but to be able to pull them up into at least a B, so that at the end of the day, we all graduated from high school. We all either went to college or gained some sort of occasional training that we could become productive members of society. But can I just add one more thing that I want to put into the Departments of Education's brain? I think that the structure of the school systems need to be reorganized so that there is a daily session that should last no more than 20 minutes. I'm feeling the age of 8 where meditative silence is encouraged and be made a part of every child's journey. And once we have gotten there, we should allow each child to keep a journal of their journey. And these are the questions that I would like our children to ask as they grow. Who am I? Why am I here? Where did I come from? And where do I go when I die? The intent of this is to create a purpose that comes from within the child. And the child will gain a sense of self. The child will grow in self-love, self-respect, which hopefully can be transferred to the respect of fellow students, fellow citizens, and
okay, let me ask you this.
To end crime.
Yeah,
that is the ultimate goal,
yeah,
to end crime.
Let me ask you this though, because I hear that you said you want to do charter schools. I need to know exactly how you plan through your legislation to do these things, because you mentioned something about St. Mary's School and how it was structured, and I agree with you. I think that was the way it was in every school, even the public schools. But then we got the No Child Left Behind Act that completely, in my opinion, eradicated
everything.
that.
Yes.
No, but hold tight.
So,
before we go to about what was structured in St. Mary's School and whatnot, research moved us to where we at, where we start about not dividing our kids, because kids develop differently. So no longer do we say because you're academic, we're gonna just put you in class A, and because you just use your hand good because we're gonna put you in class B.
I don't think it was the issue was academic. I think the issue was, I know for me,
okay,
in elementary school, all I did was talk all day long, but I got my work done, right? That's probably why I'm a lawyer. And but for me, I was bored, and so I would always be completely ahead of what everybody else was doing, and I would be finished, and I'd be telling everybody else, you wouldn't get your work done because I'm busy talking to you, but when it's time to turn in the stuff, mine is done, yours isn't finished. So I was somewhat of a problem child in first grade, second grade, third, until they moved me out into the academic content classes. But what happened was, that's where you were challenged.
Right.
And so you went to that program. And even throughout my high school years, we had 7-1, 7-2. You knew who wasn't 7-1 were the smart children, and they did really, really well, and who wasn't and who wasn't. It's a bad way to think about it.
But it was okay.
Right. It's a bad way to think about it. But when the No Child Left Behind Act came into play, that said you couldn't do that, you had to mix everybody in, what you created was this. You had children in a room that really needed to be in a room where you could have to focus on them more. But they were with a teacher who really, you're making them a special type, a specialized teacher, but you're not paying them to be a specialized teacher.
It's not a No Child Left Behind Act did that. Inclusion and mainstreaming that been subtly been coming into the school system. And then there's a theory right now called multiple intelligences that don't speak to just being academically intelligent, but speak to all different types of intelligences. Musically gifted, you could be a visual learner. And so you're seeing successes taking place. I think we're taking our system back by going back to what you're proposing
And I disagree with you.
by having these divisions.
I totally disagree with you, because one bad thing that No Child Left Behind Act did was it brought special need kids into a regular classroom. And I've spoken to teachers
assistance.
without
without assistance, but
excuse me,
remember,
sir. I've spoken
inclusion
to
was brought
teachers
in.
recently, as in my office, just this week. One particular teacher has 30 children in her class, and 10
In violation of the
No Child Left Behind Act,
Yeah.
because I think this cutoff on students was 10. So already we have broken the law. If I remember correctly, when George Bush had made that thing a law, his
Well,
number
I
was
just
10.
remember George Bush.
No, but I'm just saying, so we have gone well beyond by the time of putting 30 kids in a classroom and 10 special needs kids. And they have removed paraprofessionals, the staff has been downsized. I ask you this, sir, how many of those kids are going to really learn?
Okay, but may I ask a question? Who did that? George Bush and his No Left Behind Act didn't do that.
No, that was-
Our administration
Yes.
has done that.
Yeah,
so
no argument.
basically, they should have been given support
Absolutely.
in terms of a teacher. I forgot the name of the teacher.
Multiple paraprofessionals.
No.
Special
Modified
education
instruction.
training, yes,
All of that's
absolutely.
supposed to be done, and special education is supposed to be working with that teacher to make sure additional training
So how-
and
But
resources.
how
at the
do
end
you
of the
get
day,
that
there's a
done?
whole separate division
Yeah.
for special education in the Department of Education.
Yeah, but they can't do that anymore.
Right, they can't do it anymore, but they do still allow them to modify classes
Inclusion,
and inclusion.
Yes.
And I think that that's only fair, because you don't want to be stigmatizing and targeting special education.
I don't
Well,
believe in that.
it's fair to a certain
It's
degree.
unfair.
It's fair to a certain degree and unfair to others. It's unfair when you prevent most of your student body from moving ahead.
Right.
And becoming the best student that they can become.
But that's why the
And then it's
paraprofessional is
unfair
there.
also where these special need kids are not given the large amount of attention that they do require to learn what your average intelligent child needs to learn. So both sides of the Bell diagram are losing out on this.
I know we've taken up a lot of time on education, but I want you to reach the two other areas that you have in your platform.
We need to go to
One,
the feds for the
energy.
money for this. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, go
talk
ahead.
about energy.
Yeah.
The energy regarding, you saying here that you want to totally separate WAPA from
Yes.
the government. Tell me how you intend to do that, and what will be the benefits of that?
Well, how I intend to do that, I'm going to try to the best of my ability once I'm elected to get as much of my colleague senator body, especially those from St. Croix, to first off agree with me. Because I believe that one of the big crises that WAPA is in financially is this in-bed relationship with the administration. And at one point in the history of Governor DeYoung, prior to him being a governor, he actually sat on the board of WAPA. Okay, so I don't know if that's why the VI government has been allowed negligence in paying their utility bills and so on, in millions of dollars worth of utility bills. And I believe that if we were to separate that relationship, we would get a more responsible VI government with regards to paying their utility bills on time, and we would get a more efficient and financially fair WAPA to serve our community.
And let me tell the audience again about now your health care. You're saying there that Juan Luis Hospital must be returned
To the central government.
Why do you feel that way? And you were
Yeah.
here when we were talking on our first show about the
No,
JFL. You weren't here, but when we were discussing our first show talking about Mr. Nelson saying he was shut down the hospital, he doesn't get $54 million. You're now saying in your platform that the Juan Luis Hospital should be returned to central government. How will you do that, and why do you say that?
Yeah, when I first came back home in 1992, okay, so I came home when we were still a part of the central government. In my time working as a physician in the hospital, the energy was to move towards a semi-autonomy status, which would allow some of the revenue that the hospital collected to be spent by the hospital entity and not be put into the general fund. Okay, so initially it sounded like, oh geez, that's a very good idea. But now, as things have gone the way they have gone, Mr. Nelson has managed Juan Luis Hospital very poorly, very poorly. Semi-autonomy status has failed. All of the same issues that we had before we went to the semi-autonomy status are still there, and they have become magnified. Now they have cut the number of inpatient beds down to 20 in the medicine ward. Mr. Nelson talked about eliminating the pediatric ward completely. At this point, I totally disliked this man because he did not care about the children of the Virgin Islands.
So as a senator, what will you do? What will be your strategy or legislation to get that back?
Introduce legislation to return the hospital back to the central government. End semi-autonomy. End it. End it, end it, end it. It does not work.
Dr. Cintron, I see that we're running out of time. I will give you some time. That's okay. But you know what's going to happen though? Whether you're elected or not, we're going to have to invite you back.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes,
some other stuff because I am truly enjoying this conversation with you.
Yes.
So whether you win or not, we are going to invite you back to come on the show to discuss a lot of these issues. I think it's very important. Especially the issue regarding the Wanlawee Hospital.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to give the time to the audience and tell them where they can find you, what your number is on the ballot, and we'll wrap up with you.
Okay, my number is number 12. I'm the sign that has the windmills in the corner because I am pro-wind turbine energy. I think that's the way for us to go. We will partner with Denmark for this. It'll be a part of reparation. I don't anticipate any monies up front because it's coming as a part of reparation and they are world renowned. My number is number 12, if I didn't already say it. I am also against litter, so I have ideas on how we're going to manage our waste. You can get me on my cell phone, 227-7233. I'm in the midst of establishing my headquarters, some sort of a headquarters in Frederiksted. Across from Kamakris in Mars Hill, and I'm hoping to have an opening function either this weekend or the next weekend.
All right.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much for being on the show, and we'll be back with...
Oh, I thought he was telling me that.
Good evening and welcome back to VI Voices. As you know, we are doing our campaign, our Active Voice campaign, and we're trying to get everybody to be educated and informed as to the individuals running for the legislature and other public offices. Tonight is no different, and we have with us Mr. Arthur Joseph, or I should say Police Officer Arthur Joseph.
Good night.
With us tonight. Welcome, sir.
Thank you for
and welcome
having
to VI Voices.
Thank you for having me. Good night.
Wonderful.
Good night.
Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about who you are and why you're running for office?
Okay, certainly. I'm Arthur Joseph, of course. I was born in St. Croix, raised in Nevis briefly. And I came to St. Croix and went to the public school system. Graduated in 1987 from St. Croix Central High School. From there I went to Maryland and I started working for the Department of Human Services and Department of Health and Human Services under Surgeon General C. Everett Kloop with the AIDS program. That's why I really got introduced to activism because that AIDS issue came out pretty hard and fast and a lot of folks didn't understand it. And I got a lot of education about AIDS awareness and we worked that project. And then I went on to work at the National Institute of Health in Bethesda, Maryland, where I got a lot of training in terms of with some Jewish doctors. And I also got involved in the surgery with kidney transplant.
Wait, you were doing surgery?
Well, I do suction.
Oh, in the room?
In the surgery room, because I was working as a biomedical assistant. Now, these are things I really, my list is high.
I'm starting to laugh at you. I'm just trying to figure out why you were in the room. I mean,
because the pig was named Arthur.
Oh, okay.
So I was assisting them in the surgery.
Okay.
Procedures.
But then I came back home and I started working with the Virgin Islands Telephone Company for about 13 years, where I've been involved with the union activism for Local 8545 for quite some time. And that's why I saw all the action that I got involved in the 2002 strike with Jeffrey Prosser over a pension multiplier of only $2. And I put on the fight to win. That was the slogan, fighting to win. And as you can see what happened to Jeffrey Prosser after a period of time, we took the fight to the legislature. Currently right now there's a civil suit in court about the EDC benefits at the time, back when Snyder was in office, because I was fighting not to get Wiley Westernott appointed, because it was all a part of trying to get Vitelco 100% tax exemption. And then Vitelco failed to give the employees the stock options and the employee shared options that was a part of the EDC, at the time, EDC benefits. And so we sued them, and to this day that case is pending in court. But after that, I went to work for the Bureau of Corrections, because while at Vitelco, just before the strike, I said I promised the membership, if all of us don't return, then I don't come back. At the time when the strike was about to end, everybody didn't return, so I resigned from the Virgin Telephone Company to allow another brother to get a job, and I went to work corrections, taking a $13 cut in, $13,000 cut in pay. I went corrections for a year. It wasn't challenging enough. I mean, it's really mentally draining and roll and grow. And so then I left and joined the Virgin Police Department, where I
have been a thorn in the side of drivers from the time you reach. Officer, in the traffic division.
I'm a traffic crash reconstruction. That's the highest level of traffic crash investigation you can get anywhere in the world. So I utilize that to train in the police academy. And I teach the officers one thing: you must do your job with the utmost integrity and character, and exercise good judgment. A lot of people don't like it. But one of the most important things in this territory where a lot of people lose their families is when they don't wear the seatbelt, because the life you save will be yours. No. So I have zero tolerance for that, and DUIs.
Officer Joseph.
Yes, sir.
Now, I'm a voter.
Right.
You've arrested me, you have pulled me over, and I have an impression of how the kind of person you are.
Right.
Now you're coming to appeal to me to give your vote. Now convince me why I should look beyond you being the police officer who was doing that, and why should I vote for you as who's gonna be my next senator and provide sound leadership to me at that level?
Well, first and foremost, if you are already prejudiced against me because I did my job, then you're never going to vote for me. But I'm going to tell you this much: I did what I was supposed to do, not only because it's the law, but I probably saved your life. You understand? And it's up to you as an individual to look past the issue of whether you like me or not, because you're not. Most persons who don't vote for me probably don't like me because I gave my wife 3 tickets. You think she like that? But at the end of the day, you understand, it's not about love, it's about the law. And if you're going to do your job, that's what's happening here in this territory. Nobody stays in their lane. Nobody does their job. They talk about everybody's job or knowing what to do, but nobody does their job. And it's acceptable to a large extent. I believe that if you have been arrested by me, you receive a citation from me, you got to look past that. Think about whether or not you want somebody that does their job with character, or somebody who's corrupt that will watch you drunk go down the road and tell you, okay, go on, Clint. Not me, because at the end of the day, I got to live with myself.
And chances are 90% of the people voting have received a ticket from you. Right?
That's possible. I've been known.
Okay, but I see here on your legislative action plan that you talk about strengthening public safety and confidence. And you heard us, you were here earlier, and you heard us discussing this public safety, not public safety, the peace officer status law. What is your position on that? You're currently an officer now.
Right.
What is your position on that bill as it has been passed?
I'm going to tell you, right? Initially, when the idea of the peace officer status bill came up, my membership met, and we discussed it, and we voted along with St. Thomas resoundingly. We're not interested, we're not going to support it. Now, you know the legislature. I fought them with the 8%. They're going to do what they want to do.
Right.
Regardless, it's not like Congress, where you can write them and they respect the opinion of the people who it affects.
So you're saying the union lobbied them?
My union lobbied them. They don't care. You understand? For the most part. They will hear you, but they're going to go on the floor and do exactly what they want to do anyway.
And what was the union's position again?
The union position was this: it's an issue of sovereignty. And if you even speak to anybody who has been a federal agent, from being from police, they don't show no respect for your culture, for how you do law enforcement. And by the way, law enforcement as a federal agent, or any other federal agent, and law enforcement for local police anywhere in the United States and its territories, totally different.
Absolutely.
We are on the ground. We are meeting the people. We are pulling over cars. They don't have a clue how to do a traffic stop. Because they're in the office. They investigate a lot of white-collar crimes. They investigate terrorist issues. You understand? For example, DEA. DEA is supposed to be tracking. And we got Fast and Furious going around here. Because you know what? One guy who's deceased now will remain nameless. You know, he tell me when I've been to a gas station, I arrested him. I gave him about 7 tickets. You know, he tell me, he and me become friends. He said, Joseph, we got more guns here and ammunition than the police.
And he very well
I don't doubt him. You understand? He's dead now. You understand? He was a victim of the very guns you were talking about. But I'm saying, how did we get to this point? There was a relationship that we had with the ATF. Excellent relationship. We were doing fine. One incident, all of a sudden, we have a peace officer law. I was so inflamed last night. The only people could understand how I felt was police officers. I spoke to them, and we spoke in police language, if you know what I mean. You understand? Because we know how that affects us. It's a lack of respect. You don't want, and then they're talking about what? Giving them sensitivity class. Who gonna teach them?
Well, you know, I asked that question and
who gonna teach them this? This is not something you could just get up and walk on the street and say, well, you're sensitive to the situation here. I have many situations. I've stopped individuals who are pregnant, run the red light, give one a ticket and deliver a baby to the next. You understand? This is my life. And they don't understand that. And there's a disconnect between the legislature and their own agenda. This is not about us. This peace officer status was never asked by no federal agency or federal agent. They never asked for it. They told them that. We gonna stay here whether I got a peace officer law or not. That's what they told the senators. This is a whole different issue that we may not be aware of until I'm elected. Vote number 4 when you open the door. But anyway, we're gonna get to the bottom of this whole issue. Now, why would you put a law in place that only lasts a year? It don't make no sense.
Well,
you shouldn't have put it in place in the first place.
You don't think that it's at least...
Who are you appeasing? Who are we appeasing?
Well, there have to be a justification in terms of the fact that they have a year and then every year is renewable. So depending on their actions or
I'm
inactions...
going to tell you, if I'm elected, you're going to die the next year. You're going to die come January. I can tell you that.
Don't you think maybe it could be subjected to some revisions, maybe?
You don't need first of all, you know what's martial law? After Hugo, we felt it.
Yes.
They have that power, your attorney.
Yes.
So when they come in, if the governor said, listen, this place is out of control and my police department gone haywire, they send down the feds, the same feds we're talking about. So you don't need to give them something that they already have the power to do. This is not about us. This is about
why
them.
they didn't ask for it.
Why didn't they? How interesting. The peace officer law is passed after the legislature was basically bombarded with federal agents and a senator was removed. They have the power to do that.
You're making it to the past.
Listen, these guys protect themselves. There's more to the matter than the pestle.
I see what you're saying.
And some point in time, the chicken them coming home to roost, and they're playing games with the lives of the people of this territory. They did it with the 8%. Because how it is, you can take 8 and 16% out of household, but you can't tell Hess, we're going to assess your property tax and affect the contract that they have between Hovensa and the government of the Virgin Islands. How come we come cowards when it comes to big business, but we got bravery when it comes to
remember the governor tells them either you're going to keep it open or sell it.
But the legislature has not impaired that contract that they have.
First of all, that was never going to happen. So I don't even know what
that was about. So why should it happen to us, attorney?
So that whole, I'm going to take you to court or whatever, this is what Hovensa says, okay, go ahead. Yeah. That's what they did. That was never going to happen.
But you can jump on a small man.
Correct. So are you going to be an advocate for the small man? I know
I've always been an advocate. I will die an advocate. So, because I want you to know something, Clint. Today, tomorrow, whenever that day comes, I will not stop fighting for what I believe in. I ain't come here by chance. I spent 20 years working on me and not realizing that God was preparing me for something else.
So this is bigger than Arthur.
This is bigger than me. I have to realize that. This election, this year, is about character. It's about courage. It's about conviction. It's about love of country. If you don't love this country, get out of the race. Because right now, we can't afford not to protect our children's future. This is about protecting your future.
If you convinced us to vote for you and put you in there, what can we expect in terms of your activism as it relates?
What you can expect, ma'am, is you can expect me to sit with the other senators then and explain to them or try to convince them that this is a legislative body that's basically starting over. We're 3-0. We're at a new beginning. And we are going to have to hold ourselves to the highest standards because that's what the public is expecting. If we don't do that, if we continue business as usual, I will not be a senator for too long. I'm not going to sit a part of a body and waste time insulting the people's intelligence, insulting their understanding on what they expect from us. You understand? This election is about character. I meet people on the street when I'm campaigning, I'm giving out my cards. And you know what they're telling me? Wait, if you ain't new, I don't want you. That's what they're telling me.
No, that's an interesting, man. That's an interesting referendum on what's happening here. This is the first, now I shouldn't say this is the first time, but I would say this from hearing it from another candidate. that's saying that I believe that is the pulse of what the people are feeling. That they are sick and tired. And you can thank the 20th legislature for that, which I have said before, I think has been the worst legislature we have ever. The 29th.
It started in the 27th legislature when they came in, and we had a wonderful new governor, and they just gave him a blank check. They said, run with it. And from them, we was going downhill. He take the brakes, pull them off, and tell them jokers, we are going for a ride, but I'm going to be up here by Mafli Gate. And send them down the road. He owned all of them, every last one of them. They're afraid. And then the people, it's indicative of how the people behave. The governor is like a big bully. And I am not afraid. I've been on generic show, playing the governor. He won a crown. I am not afraid. You understand?
Well, I'm with you in that anti-bullying is not acceptable.
Well, it's because that's what's happening. The legislature is basically under control.
You think they're bullied by...
Of course they're afraid, all of them. Why is it? In the history of the Virgin Islands, Mr. Henderson, have we seen 5 elected officials walk away?
Yeah, we talked about that already.
Walked away from the legislature? That has never happened.
It's a mystery to all of us.
Well, guess what? When you hold one, let me tell you how the feds operate. I'm law enforcement. When you hold one, the rest start to say, oh gosh, you went to sing like Beyonce.
Okay, not on this show.
But it was just getting hot.
Yeah, it was getting hot.
We have
time. Let me talk about my legislative.
I want you to say what exactly, when you get into office, assuming that you win,
right,
what are some of the legislative plans you plan to put in there that we should expect that you're going to do? What bills that you plan to put forward, and what is your legislative action plan?
Okay, before you answer that, do all of that. When you don't answer that, also speak to the camera and tell us your number and wrap up and tell us why should we vote for articles.
Right.
That's a lot. But anyway, let me talk to you about my legislative action plan. We have economic stabilization and growth. Under that, we want to talk about construction jobs and manufacturing, not just short term, but long term, sustain the growth of the economy. You understand? We want to talk about finding out where we are. Where are we financially? That's a big issue in the civil case that we file.
Yes.
You understand? And when we get to find out where we are, then we start talking about fiscal responsibility, balanced budget. Okay, that's the word. We got to convince the other colleagues, listen guys, if we don't work together to solve these problems, this isn't about friendship. We got to like each other. We just got to work as patriots, Virgin Islands patriots, on behalf of the people of this territory. You understand? Then we're going to move to strengthening public safety and confidence. We have to pass laws. Too many times people are afraid. We have to pass laws that protect witnesses, jurors, police officers, attorneys, and their families. Because there's a federal law that if you threaten a federal agent, that's a felony, or his family. That don't happen here. You jump up and say something when you see something. But who protected me when I talk? Nobody's protected.
Crime
so
stoppers?
People are afraid. Crime who?
Stoppers?
They stop crime yet. Anyway, but we'll move on from there. Then we have quality, improvement, quality of life.
How do we do that though?
How we do that? Let's talk about a national health care plan. Let's follow the lead of Obama. Let's have a national, let me talk about mental health in the territory. A national health care plan. Let's talk about a land and water use plan. Something that we've been talking about but we ain't implement. And let's finally talk about energy. We have to start talking about an energy forum, an energy symposium where everybody, the brightest minds, come and tell us how we can survive the next 30 years without balling at the end of that 30 years.
So let the people know where they can find you and what your number is.
Well, you can find me at, I think the number is 220, I don't have the phone, 5357, 18.at gmail.com. And you can, when on election day, this is going to make it simple for you. When they open the election, on November 6th, when they open the election door, run and vote number 4. And when they talk to you, just tell them for you.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show, Mr. Officer Joseph. I'm sure that whether you are successful or not, we will definitely have you back on the show to discuss some of the stuff. But we're hoping that, we'll see.
You never wanted hat up. I got it hat for you.
Yes.
This was a very hot show. Thank you so very much for coming out.
Best of luck to you.
Good evening and welcome back. Well, that was a very interesting show tonight. Two very explosive candidates
Correct.
for office.
But you see what I think the second candidate, Arthur Joseph, he put forth some virtues that we should be looking for in our candidates, in our people who we want to sit in the legislature. Talk about character, and the one big one, courage.
Yeah.
Courage, and that is what I would like to see.
You know what I felt from both of them? I felt from both of them a genuine compassion that is no longer in politics anymore for people who are truly hurting. And I felt that from them, but I also felt like some real courage from both of them. I mean, Dr.
Cintron, where do you think that comes from? Where do you think that comes from? That comes from within. That comes from what we're speaking about.
It comes from genuinely loving the place you're from.
Of course, but how do you love the place you come?
Loving yourself.
And yourself.
And loving yourself.
And you know what?
And knowing yourself.
If you go down, we all go down together. You don't sell out. You just don't sell out your people.
And that's what I'm looking for. Because trust me, I don't care who you are, white, pink, black, or blue. At the end of the day, I want to know you have me and my children at heart.
Absolutely.
And that's what I'm looking forward to.
Absolutely.
So, and I am thinking that what the tone has been set. We are going to have to start to discuss some of these virtues that we need to be pulling out of our leaders, that our leaders should be displaying when they come before us.
Yeah.
And courage.
I really felt it tonight. I just felt that these were two people who genuinely were compassionate about what they were doing. And I really felt that they were wanting to go into office because they genuinely want to be a public servant. Because clearly they can both be doing other things. You know what I'm saying? And so I got from them, and they are in different areas. One is an officer, the other is a doctor. But that love for the territory, I think, really jumped out for them.
But one thing I like to see, which I like that Arthur Joseph shared his resume with us. Yeah. Because it shows with me that credentials are important. That so you have to have some background, some prerequisite experience to jump in this ring. And I'm looking for that. That I don't say everybody need to have the same sort of credential, but you need to have a very diverse background and experiences before when you step to a position like this.
I totally agree with you, but how many of the average voters take the time out to analyze credentials and background and where you know what you're about and what you've been doing for the past?
That's why we have this show, because we're going to start to do that to push them to start looking for those things when they're looking to who they're going to vote for.
He's a working man. But he definitely was a union leader. All of those things to this particular point.
It was a different area.
Yes.
You see, so he has the experience. I think what's also important for me is looking at somebody who has experienced different things, who have traveled, seen different cultures, have been in different places. So when you come back and you make certain decisions, you kind of say, well, if I do this, this will affect a community in this way because I've seen it done before. Sometimes you have people in there who have done absolutely nothing, they haven't gone anywhere, they haven't experienced anything, and they make decisions off the cuff or on emotion, and they don't look at what the end result would be for that decision.
Correct.
But it's amazing what Officer Joseph said regarding the police officer status bill that Senator Sines didn't really say when he was here, and that was his thing, that the federal government said, we don't want it. So why it's like giving you something that you don't want. They've said we don't want it. I was actually under the impression that they were the ones asking.
Well, I don't think they asked.
First.
No,
but they didn't.
They didn't ask for it, and I think that was.
But I don't think they said they didn't.
Officer Joseph said they didn't ask for it. They never asked for it.
Right.
But we went out and said, okay, we're going to offer it to them.
It's interesting to see why.
And you see, and that's the troubling part. So there's a lot of self-interest in a lot of these legislation.
I asked that question earlier. Who does it benefit most? I asked that question earlier. Who does it benefit most by passing this bill? And not only that, why would we go to them as opposed to them? That's because of our views of ourselves and our views of them.
One of the problems is
the same outside-in type kind of cultivation.
Correct. Where is the people's voices? Because I think he mentioned that the unions gave their input as to their objections to that bill and why they were against it. But it was totally disregarded according to what he said. It was totally disregarded.
And that's where I come back with the discussion each time. What did the working men and women, what did the common folks say about a lot of these bills that came before our legislators? A lot of them said no. Yeah. And I'm telling you, if you are a PBA member, a member of the Police Benevolence Association, and you said that you didn't want this bill and now you're now being forced to accept this bill, you should be putting this bill in this other column over here and look at the people who voted for this bill.
But it happens all the time. I mean, he said that the PBA was dead against this bill, but they did what they wanted anyway. But it even happens when judges are appointed and they go for the legislature. The Bar Association comes out and says, well, we don't think that this person, nobody listens to us. And we're the ones who have to deal with whomever that person will be every single day. And so you would think, you would kind of say, okay, well, the bar doesn't think that this should happen, but we should take a closer look at it. But it doesn't happen.
But I'm telling you about it, when the peers of some of these people tell you, you shouldn't consider them. And when the people who are going to be affected by these legislation tell you it's not a sound policy, shouldn't you be listening to them?
Absolutely.
And that's where I say, this present legislature have not been listening to the people of the Virgin Islands. Whether the working man or own a small business or you have a $2 million house, they have not been listening to the people of the Virgin Islands.
I think everybody read it and I but Ms. Cintron said something as well that I totally agree with, and I think that we should address that and even look towards that, which is reparations, and the fact that Denmark and their windmill, they're known, well renowned for their windmill and source of energy, the windmill being a source of energy. And now, of course, we could, not necessarily a handout or money per se, but some kind of training, we could get a delegation together. In fact, the government did offer, I think it was the brother Shelly Mohe. Accra, correct. He was granted $30,000, which he never got. Maybe perhaps we could look into that. To give him $30,000, they give money away all the time. $30,000 to give him that and his organization.
Well, we know that at least $4,000 to $10,000 have been going to Rwanda every month.
That
right? That's not what happened.
And for what? What was the purpose of that?
I don't know.
And how was it beneficial to us as a people? But what I'm saying is, some kind of people could go over there to get the knowledge, the technology, and get the training, and then we could come over here and implement that. See, we could put them out there by Point Uda. That's a perfect place to set up our windmill.
Well, I do believe that for alternative sources of energy, that not one of them, or I should say, there should be no individual one that we all use, because it depends on where you are on an island. Windmills may work at Point Uda, but it may not work in the first area.
And that's fine.
So, but we definitely should be looking at stuff like that, whether it be the windmills, whether it be corn, whether it would be liquid gas or some other solar, whatever it is, we should be looking at it, and I don't think anybody's looking at it at all.
A grid that is use all of these multiple sources,
correct,
and maybe lessening our costs,
correct,
because definitely WAPA has been telling you conserving, but it's still been increasing the layout.
I traveled in 2003. I was in Barbados, and almost every house in Barbados had a solar panel on it. Even Rihanna's little old house had
a solar panel. But it wasn't Senator Hill in his wisdom that said we don't need to legislate this. People are going to slowly do it.
It was very
nonsense.
I would like to see what his house looked like.
No, thank you. He probably have these things. Mandate it. We need.
Yeah, every house had it, and so there was not a major pull on their government system for their electrical stuff. So, of course, you know, some places still had electrical power, and most buildings did. But every place you look, there was solar paneling on every single building that I saw.
But you see, the troubling part is we keep changing up sound policy and creating other policies that create hardship for the people in the long term. Like we told people, if you're close to if you have close to a public water line, you don't need to build a system. And we live in an area that it rains ever so often, and water collection should be a standard. If you look in the mainland right now, they have all kind of sort of water catchments.
Yeah.
And you're telling our people don't build systems, and you're then telling them don't put up solar energy. I think we need to start to change.
We'll definitely talk more about that. And I just think tonight's a wonderful night. I want to thank Dr. Cintron and thank Arthur Joseph for being on the show tonight. We will continue our series. I'm going to make sure that you rock your voice and be sure to go out and make your voice be heard, because it's extremely important that you vote as though your life depends on it. And remember, your voice can make a difference. Good night, everybody.